Hello and welcome back to this series where we will be looking at a future of the world. So I have added cities and capitals to this map. There are a few capitals missing, I'm pretty sure, but we can just fix that as we go along. And so Iran will be joining China's alliance. Now that the CSTO has collapsed, they still want protection, and China's alliance is the only one that's really willing to let them in. And Ethiopia is going to be joining China's alliance. They fought a war against the East African Federation and Egypt and Sudan. Everyone around them except for Djibouti. And they feel like maybe getting revenge sometime in the future. And NATO is too far away from them to really be of any use to them. I mean, China's alliance is also far away, but they prefer China's alliance over NATO, so they'll be joining them. And also Mozambique will be joining China's alliance because they feel kind of threatened by the East African Federation. And also, historically, China and Mozambique have had good relations, like back in the Cold War, I'm pretty sure. And then Belgium will be partitioned by the Netherlands, France, and Germany. They have experienced a bit of instability, and we will see the formation of a new alliance between Oceania and most of ASEAN, and then Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. And this is primarily an alliance against China. And India is thinking about joining this, but they're not quite sure yet. So they're going to think about it more before deciding if they want to join this. And then the civil war in Myanmar will eventually end with the official government coming out on top, and then they will decide to join China's alliance. After this thing formed, China kind of put some money into this, making sure that they would win and that they're aligned with them. And so that is why they join them. And then Somalia will be joining and they will be fully joining into the East African Federation. The East African Federation has decided to do a thing where a few members can apply at a time, and then others can join later. Because originally it was supposed to be just what they had before Somalia joined, but then it kind of expanded out, and so this is they decided this is how they're actually gonna get it done. And then Mauritania will be joining the Anti-Imperialist Pact. The government that they have in place in this future world is in line with the AIP, so they will be joining them. And then Elon Musk, after the Second American Civil War, he moved back to South Africa, and he has been influencing the government a bit, and so he's going to have them join NATO. And then he's going to centralize the government to, I feel like there's a better word than centralize, I don't know if that's a word, but whatever. And now it only has one capital in Pretoria. And then they will be sending a demand to both of the smaller countries to get annexed. And this one, Lesotho, I believe, will comply and agree to get annexed. And then this one of the diarchs will agree to join, but the other one and most of the people don't want to. And so South Africa, with the help of the guy in here, will invade in, and eventually they're gonna surrender over because they're not that strong. And so the peace treaty will be full annexation for them, obviously, because that's what they asked for. I mean, what South Africa asked for. And so then they will declare war, and then South Africa will declare war on Namibia, which they used to have, And then they will invade up, mostly following the coast, because it's a bit easier of terrain. And also, if I'm correct, the capital is over here. I need to remove the capitals. Wait 1 second. Anyway, and so they will invade up, and then speaking of the capital, they will make an offensive around here, around there, and eventually encircle it, and then eventually capture it, and then pretty soon after that they will capture the whole coastline, and then they will surrender over. And so let's take a look at this peace treaty between South Africa and Namibia. And then, of course, it will be full annexation for Namibia. And so this will lead to Angola joining China's alliance for kind of same reasons as Mozambique, but they're also scared of South Africa. And then Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia will join the Anti-Imperialist Pact because they are also scared of South Africa. And because NATO is in more places than just North Africa, not North Africa, Northern Atlantic, they will be renaming to the Democratic Defense Organization. And then all these countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain will be joining the Democratic Defense Organization, even though they're not a lot of them aren't democratic, they're absolute monarchies, but what are you gonna do? And then Russia and China will be invading Kazakhstan and Mongolia and also Kyrgyzstan, but they're not important. So they will go in Mongolia, and I think in real life these wars would happen maybe in quick succession, or maybe I don't think they would really happen at the same time. There might be a big gap, but it's just easier to show it happening at once. So they will go into Mongolia. It's kind of harsh terrain, so they're not going to get all that far that quickly, but they're going to make decent pace because they're some of the largest military and economical powers in the world. So, and then Russia will move in to this part of Kazakhstan around the Caspian Sea and down the coast of it and into this part. And then they will go all around the border like that into this, and then up to this lake thing, which I don't know the name of, and like that, and this eastern part. And then they'll move into Mongolia's capital, where almost everyone lives, and so they will surrender over. They don't really have that much of a choice. And then they're gonna make an offensive to the capital, and then eventually, slowly but surely, they will lose, and then eventually they will also surrender. Missed a spot. But anyway, let's look at the peace treaty for Mongolia and Kazakhstan. And it is going to be full annexation for both of them, Mongolia into China, and Kazakhstan into Russia. And so the Democratic Defense Organization is going to be pretty alarmed by this, but there's not a whole lot they can do. And Lebanon is going to decide to join the AIP, And also, by the way, this is probably kind of obvious, but I should probably say it. We're kind of in like a second Cold War right now, but it's 3 sides instead of 2. Well, technically 4, but this group is kind of mostly in line with the Democratic Defense Organization. So it kind of acts a bit more like 3, even though there's 4 alliances. Well, 4 major alliances. I'm sure there's some alliances around here, but they're not on the map, so they're not that important. And the Democratic Defense Organization will be invading into Serbia. They want to prevent them from joining China's alliance. That would be kind of bad for them, because right here they would be threatened. And they also just kind of don't really like them that much in general. Anyway, so Albania and the surrounding countries will go up into Kosovo. Bulgaria will invade in. So will Romania and Hungary, and then Croatia will launch an offensive like this here and down the coast with the help of Montenegro. And Montenegro will make offense. And then eventually they will have and then eventually they will launch an offensive into the capital city and the city and this other major city and this one here, pretty much completely capturing former Bosnia and Herzegovina and this area, and then eventually they will be forced to surrender. And so let's take a look at this peace treaty between Serbia and the Democratic Defense Organization. And this is what the Balkans is going to be looking like after this peace treaty. It is mostly divided up on ethnic lines, but the Balkans is kind of just like a mess of everything. So it's definitely not perfect, but this is what it's going to come to look like. And Bosnia will join NATO, and Serbia will have a new government installed and will also join NATO. Or, not NATO, the Democratic Defense Organization. And then the Democratic Defense Organization is trying to influence Costa Rica, and they're going to have them invade Panama. And then these 3 countries will join in to help Panama. And then El Salvador will join in on Costa Rica's side because they don't like Honduras very much. There was the football war. I don't know if they still don't like them, but for the sake of this war, they will. And then Belize will also join in on the war because England is also trying to influence them, and they're kind of wanting to like reform the British Empire a little bit, but I mean that's going to be kind of hard for them, but we'll see. And so Costa Rica will move in, capturing this major city, and into Nicaragua, like that. And then El Salvador will push up near Honduras' capital, and around the border. And then Guatemala will push in over here in the west, right there. And then Guatemala will push into Belize a little bit here. And then Belize will push in over here by the border with Mexico. And then Honduras will push back against El Salvador almost completely. And then they will push into El Salvador down here. And then Costa Rica will push up. And it looks like there's a major city right next to Nicaragua's capital, and capture that, and go up along the coast, and just all over, and then down into Panama. And the Democratic Defense Organization is really supplying Costa Rica here. They really want them to win this. And then Belize will be pushed back and pushed out of Guatemala completely, and then pushed into more, and almost completely surround the capital city. They completely surround the capital city except for the coastline. And then Honduras will completely push out El Salvador, and then fully capture and capitulate El Salvador. And then Nicaragua's capital will be captured, and then they will fully surrender over to Costa Rica, and then Belize will be fully captured. And then Costa Rica will slowly and surely make their way. And then before Costa Rica can do a naval invasion or cross the Panama Canal, Colombia will take the other half of Panama. But then they will work out a treaty because the Democratic Defense Organization really wants Costa Rica to have it, so they will get it a little bit like that. And so it'll look like this. And then Costa Rica will continue up into their territory and like this, and because they're really defending the capital city, they will be able to capture all of this. And then into here, they're not gonna really restore this government, so I'm coloring it in as occupied, like that. Then they will work their way through here and eventually capture the capital city and work their way through most of Honduras, and then go further into El Salvador, completely capturing it, and as well as all of Honduras. And then they will move their way into Guatemala, and then into former Belize, and go around and capture this major city, and then eventually the capital, and also they're going to get to Belize's capital, which will cause them to completely surrender over to Costa Rica. And so, let's take a look at this peace treaty between Costa Rica and the rest of Central America. And the peace treaty will simply be full annexation, and Costa Rica will form the Republic of Central America, and then they will join the Democratic Defense Organization. And because of the war in Central America, Mexico is gonna be pretty unstable, and so the Republic of the Yucatan will break away, and so the U.S. will come in to, in their words, stabilize the region, or the country, and so they will move in to Baja California, and pretty much along the entire border, like this, down here, and down over into this coast area. And also along this coast. And also the Zapatista movement, which I think they're kind of like not very active right now, but at this point they are, and the and the U.S. is funding them here. With this alternate U.S. And so they will go up, and the U.S. is supplying them, or whatever it's called in this timeline. So they will move up, and there will be some groups over here, and I guess right here. Or, well, I should probably have cities on. And some cities, and some of them are in support of the Adizzpro movement in the U.S., some of them are not. So they will move around and kind of connect up with them a bit, and connect up to the U.S. Capture these major cities, and encircling this area. Then eventually, they're gonna connect up here, the group here as well, and then eventually they're gonna go up, capture the city, and so eventually this would take a long time, and this was kind of happening during the war in Central America, but they will eventually surrender over. And let's take a look at this peace treaty between the U.S. and the Zapatista movement and Mexico. And for the peace treaty, the U.S. will get some border territories, including Baja California, and then the Zapatista movement will become in charge of Mexico, and they will join the Anti-Imperialist Pact, and a new border with Yucatan is arrived upon. I just kind of fixed up the border because I realized that there's a river here, so I don't know if that would actually happen. And then the next thing that is going to be happening, which is over here, is that the Democratic Defense Organization will be invading into Morocco. And so they will launch an operation into Morocco by this part where Spain has some little bits of, and they will go down the coast, and then the Anti-Imperialist Pact, with the help of their allies, let me just do this real quick, like that, will be joining this invasion. I'm coloring the same color as this, but it's not really on the same side. I mean, when they're kind of cooperating, but also they're on opposite sides of the Second Cold War, so it's not really like that. But for simplicity's sake, we're gonna color it the same, and they will be kind of invading through and with the help of the Western Sahara, or the Sahrawi Republic. I don't know how you pronounce it. And so Morocco will make a bit of a counter-offensive, even reaching up to the coast, and they'll manage to push back down here, and the Anti-Imperialist Pact will move up more, and then they will make a naval landing through the Canary Islands right here, and then they're gonna meet up, and they're kind of right here, they're gonna kind of agree on how to divide this thing up, and then they will jointly take this out, and then Anti-Imperialist Pact will move along the coast. Should probably have had these on. Okay, so they already captured the capital, and then they're gonna capture this again, and eventually they'll capture all major cities, and so Morocco will be forced to surrender. So let's take a look at this peace treaty between the Democratic Defense Organization, the Anti-Imperialist Pact, and Morocco. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, these main countries, there's kind of a common theme with them, like, gaining land or, like, being the main ones. So, like, the Nordics, they don't really, and Scotland and Ireland, they don't really support this war, but these ones more do more, I mean. And the reason why is because either they've gained land, so they trust these countries, or they're like the leaders, these countries, or they've lost land, so they want to get more back, or their governments have been set up by the Democratic Defense Organization, like Belarus, Bosnia, and Serbia. So, obviously, Western Sahara gets their lands that they claim, and also Spain gets this chunk of Morocco, which they had historically, and then they will join the alliances that invaded into them. Oh, the AIP didn't really invade into Western Sahara. They like helped them take this. And then the AIP will decide to invade Guyana and to take the claimed territories that Venezuela has, and also to kind of solidify their influence that was kind of threatened by this whole thing, and say they will move in. It's kind of hard to invade into this part because it's pretty much just jungle, but for the sake of interesting colors changing on a map, they will. And they'll reach the capital, and that's pretty much it, because all of this is pretty much uninhabitable. And so of course they will surrender. And let's look at this peace treaty for Guyana. And Venezuela will annex the land that they fought this war over, and Guyana will be given a new pro-AIP government. And that is going to be it for this video. Whoops, I need to give Western Sahara a capital. I don't really think they have a capital, but I'll give it them this one, since they're an actual country now. But that is going to be it for this video. If you liked it, consider giving it a like, and watch some of my other videos, and if you like those, consider subscribing. But I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.